Thank you for joining for another episode of the TechSpective Podcast. I have with me two of my friends from Torq, Leonid and Don. If you guys want to introduce yourselves and just kind of let the audience know who you are.
Cool. Thanks, Tony. Don Jeter, CMO at Torq.
And I'm Leonid Belkind, CTO and Co-founder at Torq.
Okay. For those who may not know, let's just kind of start with the general overview of Torq. Yeah, so I will say, I just wrote about kind of the culture and the brand image of Torq, and in the article, I think I even made the reference of, or if I didn't, I meant to, that it stands out to me. Torq stands out to me along the same lines as what I remember of Alien Vault. Like Alien Vault, like everywhere I went, it was just the branding was there. It was larger than life. When you'd go to RSA, you'd go to events or whatever. It's like the brand, like the brand image was almost more valuable than the product for them. But like I say, you guys had the monster truck at RSA. There's a lot of things you do that are like bold and splashy and definitely get attention in a field where there's a lot of sameness. So let's start there.
I'll start. Don, chime in. So the thing is, I think, Tony, you're spot on. It's the product versus the brand image. And I think both when Don and when our current chief revenue officer were interviewing with my partner and our CEO, Don, please keep me honest here, I think 3 minutes after the beginning and the mutual introduction, Offer said, let me show you the product. Which is very unorthodox. Like, let me tell you about the company, our funding, our plans. And Offer said, no. Let me show you the product. Let me tell you what it means to the users, which already stands out in itself. Now, again, Don can tell the perspective from his own eyes of how it felt, but I explicitly remember my first impression of Don a couple of years ago when we met. Don said, look, we have a cool product. Let's make the world know about it. We have an impactful product, a product that really changes the day-to-day life of people who use it. We should say that, not be shy about it, say that sort of like straight to wherever it is. So that's sort of like my impression of where we started with product, where we wanted to be with the brand. Don, how did it seem from your end?
Yeah, I think super technical products, right? Technical products that solve really complex challenges. I think a lot of times companies want to lead with that. They want to get right to the innovation, the features and functions, but we forget, like, if you don't get attention and awareness first, you're never going to get the opportunity or the right to tell somebody how great the product is. And for us, we take that very serious. And it's, it's fun and there's some irreverence to it, but it is really about capturing attention and then leading with the problem or the pain point of our customers. I think if you do that well, you speak their language, you capture their attention, then you get the opportunity to talk about how your product's going to solve their very real pain point. And we have this incredible partnership with Monster Jam, shout out Monster Jam, a 6-city tour with them. We just got done with our LA event. We're going to Austin next. So we're on tour with Monster Jam. I think it's more than just this big truck in a booth, right? We really want to create, a lasting impression on our customers and create an emotional connection with them too. And we don't think that there's a better way than having these events where they can bring their friends and family. We're having, the first one I went to, there were 9 kids, I think under 5 years old in our suite. And, a lot of CISOs and a lot of these professionals are a little bit tired of the happy hours or the round tables or the dinners. And I think our goal was just to be different. That's another thing I think that we forget in marketing and in the startup world is differentiation isn't just about differentiation of features and functions. It's about having a different point of view, creating a different experience, a different tone, different visual language. And so we're trying to be different at every corner. every turn we're trying to be different. And Monster Jam and the event and everything we do is with that in mind.
Okay. Well,
And
so
maybe, Don,
go ahead. Go ahead.
If I may, it's not only about being different, but it's about different in a way that truly represents who we are. Because, for better or for worse, we are not going to fundamentally change who Don is, who I am, and so on. We don't think that we are anything bad. Therefore, amplifying it and sharing it in the visual identity of the brand in any field event. Let's take not a monster truck related thing. Every vendor organize a party at the RSA. Somebody does drinks. We did a good dinner to which I, being a wine guy, we've chosen a wine. We haven't spoken much about the product. We haven't spoken much about our innovation. There are many more opportunities for that. We have spoken about the fact that we all love to have a really good dinner, have a really good wine, talk about where it comes from, why people who make it are connected to it, and so on. And I, for once, felt that it was yet another way of A, being different, but B, being different that is very true to who we are, right? Didn't need to sort of present myself as anything else like I'm not.
Right. Well, and I think, for anyone who's never been to RSA and experienced that environment, what you just described, the round tables, the happy hours or whatever, is it is very true, because I've gone and, I'll get 3, 4, 5 invites a night, for whatever. There's things all over the place. And being on the media side or whatever, I want to try to get to all these things. But what I've noticed over the years, and this is, I've been going for, 16, 17 years now, is you almost can't tell which one you're at. Because you go from venue to venue, but it's kind of all the same hors d'oeuvres. It's all the same drinks. It's all the same people. Same people you bounce from event to event. And so you could have a conversation with someone at one happy hour and then walk across town to another happy hour and pick up the conversation again with the same person. And so
Tony, you're spot on.
And I think people going from one party to another. That's what you do. It's the same people.
I would argue too on that point, Tony. It's the same thing with booths. You walk booth to booth. Everybody's agentic. Everything's AI. It's the same buzzwords.
Autonomous. Don't forget that.
Everything's the same booth to booth. And so we take that into consideration as well. It's we didn't, we don't really talk about the product much. We're trying to make an impression and really, in my view, marketing should be a reflection of the culture. And I think Torq has a cool culture. And so we try to build kind of a go-to-market motion and a brand that's cool.
Well, and so I was going to touch on something you said, you mentioned earlier, Don, which was, a lot of companies want to talk about the tech, what it does. And the thing is, when you are the company and you're the developer, you are excited about that. You're hey, I did a cool thing. This is an innovative way to solve this problem, and you want to talk about that. But the thing is, most people don't understand it at that level and don't care. Honestly, they want that. They want the outcome, but they don't care about the technology the way you care about the technology. Right. And so you've got to find another way to have that conversation. And to your point about the show floor and the booths, I think, I know I've talked about it on previous podcasts. I've probably talked about it with you, but I've gone through the exercise of walking the floor and kind of cataloging what everyone says at the different booths. And you're right. If you don't work in cybersecurity and you're actually there at the event trying to get information about products and services, I'm not sure how you're supposed to achieve that goal at an event like RSA, because you can go to 150 booths and they all sound the same. They're all saying the same thing. They can be completely different products, solving completely different problems, but the pitch sounds almost identical. So if you don't know what's what, then I don't know how you're supposed to differentiate that. And so what I think is cool and what about the way that you've approached the brand and culture is it's about, at least in an environment like RSA, on a show floor like the RSA show floor, being memorable. so that
Right.
when they go back to their office and they're thinking, okay, well, now I need to try to solve a problem, they can at least go, well, let me go see what Torq was about. Like everyone said the same thing, and I'm not really sure, but at least I remember there was a monster truck and a lot of cool colors, and let me go see what that was about.
Right. I think that's a big part of it. Like, yeah, exactly what you said. The booths kind of blend together, and you're not going to remember much. And that's outside of even RSA, right? You think about our phones, everything that's fighting for our attention, not just in the security space, right? Not just in our industry, but in the media cycles, everything. The attention span is so low now that you have to make an impression, make a memory, right? You have to create that. And then there's also the idea of perception, right? We want to seem big, and I think that this was a little bit of a gamble or a risk, I guess, but it got people talking, good or bad. And I just want you to have a POV on Torq. And I think most people now know Torq, and we do have a very to some degree polarizing brand and approach, but in today's world, like, I think you need that. I think you need to create something that people have a point of view on.
Right. There's a and I don't know if you'll appreciate the comparison or not, but the brand marketing concept to me is similar to liquid death.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, where it's like you're selling water.
Yeah. Well, I think they're, we talked about this even before I accepted the role, like with the leadership team, with the board, and this was 3-4 years ago. I used liquid death as almost a case study. It's like, hey, you got a aisle of water, every water, Aquafina, Fiji, Dasani, name them, right? And there's probably 12, 14 other water bottles. They're all selling water, but the difference is the packaging and the positioning, right? That's the only difference. It's just how it's packaged. It's in a different type of can with a different type of visual language, has a different tone. It's brand. And so, we use that. Yeah. And I think we naturally kind of started to use a lot of the, skeleton imagery when we found that, the market was really responding to SOAR is dead. And that's where the story starts. It starts with the pain points around legacy SOAR. And so as you unpack, as you sit in that booth and start to understand what we're saying with our visual language, not all the words agentic, autonomous, we're saying that, the way you've been approaching automation is obsolete, and it's old and it's dead, and it's too complex, it's too time consuming, it's too costly. And the market had a very visceral reaction to that. Our large enterprise customers responded very well to that story. And so it almost naturally turned into a brand around that pain point and helped us in a very efficient way talk about a very complex challenge and a very complex pain point that a lot of customers had, which is legacy SOAR. And so it was such a natural evolution. And then as people get it, it's like, okay, they start to unpack, oh, there's a story here. It's more than just skeletons, laser eyes, chainsaws, monster trucks. That's
important. That's important because you could just have a really amazing marketing brand that captures attention and everyone's like, wow, that's really cool. Have you guys heard of Torq? And then when you go look under the covers, you go, oh, all right. Yeah.
This is where the connection matters. And this is where the skeleton is not just a cool, appealing graphics, but it creates this almost immediate connection to, okay, these are people claiming that SOAR is dead. Wait a second, why did they say that SOAR is okay? I agree with that. Okay, what do they have to offer, right? It's if you come to think of it, even among the very strong brands in various industries, don't have to be tech, there isn't always a very strong connection between a brand or its graphical imagery and sort of like the problem it solves. If I had to think, like Don, again, help me out, let's think vehicles. The brand that comes to my mind is Volkswagen, which is people's car in German. What problem does it come to solve? Oh, the problem that all other cars are way too expensive for an average representative of people. So we create a brand that is people's car. Nowadays, it's not the cheapest, but this was the initial perception of their brand. That's our motto. We create cars because all the others are not accessible to the people. And with us and the skeleton imagery and SOAR is dead being sort of like the battle cry, it very much resonated and allowed a very explicit follow-up. Nowadays, it's been quite some time since somebody even sort of like tried to argue with the fact, saying, no, SOAR is actually great, we should keep on using it and so on. But let's say when it wasn't such a clear-cut message, we had a very, very clear set of second layer, third layer, fourth layer of data points and so on why this thing is what we claim it is. And I think it's very important, because otherwise you would very soon, being a tech person, understand that there is a gap between, I don't know, calling something subsonic and wait a second, it's not.
Right. Well, and, the other analogy that comes to mind with the brand is, and I'm going to date myself now because I'm going to talk about a concept that probably anyone under 30 doesn't have any familiarity with at all, which is going into a Blockbuster video store.
Oh yeah.
And let me explain to you what that is.
No, I'm
before Netflix.
So I mean, that was my childhood, no doubt.
You go into Blockbuster and you're just looking at a shelf of video boxes. You're looking at the boxes, and the thing is, many times I had rented a movie based purely on the packaging, because that's all you had to go on. You looked at the package and you said, all right, this is really cool. And then you got home, you're like, well, this movie sucks. And it's like you've got to have the product to back the packaging.
You can't have, and I've said this on other podcasts, you can't have such a bold, disruptive, and ultimately confident brand without an incredible product behind it. It falls down. It doesn't work. And we have a very cool product. And it's been very, rewarding, I think, to see the market become aware of that product. And I don't think we would have gained that market awareness as fast if we didn't have a really disruptive brand approach matched with an incredible product. And that's why you're seeing this incredible revenue growth. You wrote about this in your article, 300% revenue growth. Big names, Uber, Pepsi, Chipotle, Procter & Gamble, right? These are big names that are moving off of legacy SOAR to Torq, not because we have a skeleton, right? That skeleton may get you in the door. Going to a Monster Jam event may say, hey, I want to be a part of this, but it's the product that's got to deliver. And we have an incredible product team, incredible support team, and culture at Torq. Because that's ultimately, again, what I'm trying to reflect in the marketing is the culture of Torq. That's product, that's people, that's everything we do. It doesn't work without that go
ahead.
I had another interesting data point on that thing. Recently, we have launched a new community platform for our users to interact, exchange experiences, opinions, and so on. And, it was always very, very interesting for us, because we interact a lot with our users on various forums, to see how active will the people be. And I think it came as a surprise to even the biggest optimists among us to see how proud people are of associating themselves with Torq, sharing proudly what they've done. This morning, I've seen one of our bigger contributors, definitely a longtime user, who has reached a milestone of their posts having been read 2,500 times, and that's in a time span of a couple of months, right? What they do is of a prime interest to their colleagues, etc., right? It's something that is very central to a day-to-day life of our users. And I think that is also a big thing. We don't solve just somebody's, small problem, which they're happy for us solving, but it's not a big changer. It changes a lot about their day-to-day professional lives, about the impact they make in their workplaces, etc. And that adds to that passion.
Right.
Our passion about the technology, our passion about the brands, our users' passion about the outcomes they create. And, when people who are passionate about different things meet together, it all sort of like fits very well. Being very excited about something, happy to share, proud to talk, kind of on an emotional level.
I mean, I have firsthand experience, so I can say that is absolutely true. So like I launched the community at Tenable, and we built we built the community. And the thing is, every company's got some sort of knowledge base, something where you can go try to find answers on your own. That's not the same thing. Like we're talking about building a community, and in order to have that kind of community engagement and have, you need customers who are passionate, who are willing to be unpaid brand ambassadors. I mean, they want to be in there, and they want to have conversations with other people, and they end up offloading your customer support to some extent, because even though you're not paying them, they're under no obligation to help anybody, but they help each other, and so it becomes I guess the analogy I would say is a little bit like a successful open source project or whatever, where like everyone's in there and just helping each other.
The best brands are chasing community, trying to build this community, because co-creation with your audience is the best, right? You're not shouting at them, you're not begging them to participate. It's co-created, and I think that's what we're seeing with Torq. And I think you could look across the kind of landscape right now. The probably best in the business right now is Wiz. They have an incredibly engaged community, and people who just love the product and want to be a part of that product and community. And that's what we're doing here. So
I wanted to, we spend a lot of time on brand and image and stuff like that, but I want to talk a little bit deeper about the product. So like, we had SIM, and like, all right, hey, now we're going to aggregate all this information, and so you've got one source for alerts, and it's like, well, that sounded cool, except for now I've got 5,000 alerts from this one SIM, and I still don't know what to do with them. So then someone said, hey, well, what if we had SOAR? What if we said, hey, we're going to take these alerts and we're going to create these playbooks, and the playbook will decide, when this alert comes in, we're going to do X, Y, Z, and that's going to automate things. I feel like that fell flat almost immediately, because I think few companies were willing to have the faith in SOAR at that point. First of all, in order for it to work properly, there was a lot of upfront effort involved to really understand the alerts and define the playbooks in a way that you would trust isn't going to break something. And so building that faith in having a successful SOAR was a challenge in and of itself. Just like, building a successful SIM was a challenge in and of itself. So SOAR was supposed to solve the SIM problem, but didn't really. And then we've gone into other forms of automation. Now, one of my questions, and which hopefully one or both of you can answer, is where we're at now with generative AI, with agentic AI, I think really starts to solve that SOAR problem, because it's like, all right, well, now I've got a smarter way to do this. But when Torq was founded, when you guys started building things and said, hey, SOAR is dead, was this already on your radar? Were you ahead of this curve, or is this kind of happy circumstance where you're like, oh, well, now we've got agentic AI, now we can really do this?
So first and foremost, for us, it's about two fundamental things. Number one is, how hard or maybe how long do I need to work for the technology before it starts working for me? And this time to value, time to market, etc., is a very important measurement on how willing you will be as a potential user to adopt the technology, etc. And this is one point, and we'll talk about that. And I think here, artificial intelligence has broken some glass ceilings that were in the industry for a very long time. The other side of it is, let's say once you've passed this hurdle, is okay, now how deep can I go with it, right? Because there are many great products who may provide a very short time to value, and then you have the value, you're very happy with it, and then you ask, now what? And many of them, even very decent products, don't really have a deep growing value attachment to what you need to achieve. And when we were building the product, these were the two big things. When we started the company, no, generative AI was definitely not on our radar, but hey, there were very significant advantages that we introduced. Even before that, we brought in democratization introduced by no code and low code and assisted development collaborative development. When we launched the company, the first closures, waves of COVID hit. Suddenly, security teams were no longer sitting in the same room. So being able to collaborate, being remote within the product was a very major theme that we picked up and introduced, etc. So there were a lot of efficiencies to be gained based on the previous generation of the technology. I think we first realized how transformative generative AI is, again, for both questions. A, how quick you could get to a value. B, how deep you can go into achieving additional values. About 2.5 years ago, Don, you might remember the exact moment because you were visiting the headquarters. We were sitting, you were looking at the first demonstration, and we demonstrated a first AI agent that managed to autonomously drive a security alert through investigation, a risk score evaluation, and a sort of like remediation stage. Naturally, in comparison to AI agents today, it was probably still very early days, but we looked at it and we said, maybe we have here something. Remember that demo, Don?
Yeah, I think we knew right away. It's like, this is going to be a game changer, no doubt.
Well, and where we're at today, so I think things are the agentic AI model is a significant improvement over the SOAR model. I think you still have some like faith and confidence hurdles. We're talking about my network. We're talking about my security of my data. We're talking about a lot of very crucial things. And so surrendering that to technology and saying, all right, I'm gonna take my hands off the wheel, and let the car drive itself. It does take a leap of faith.
Interesting analogy about the self-driving car, because during the RSA that takes place in San Francisco, we as a team actually took a point of riding, each and every one of us at least once, in Waymo to experience, right? Not everyone lives in the city where these things are allowed to go on the streets. So here are two frameworks of thoughts that we approach when discussing this trust, confidence issue, etc. Number one is most of the road incidents are today actually occurring because of the human drivers, aren't they? And the human driver that you will get at, doesn't matter the company, the Lyft, Uber, that would probably not be perfect as well. As a matter of fact, it would be a person that may be tired, maybe, God forbid, intoxicated, and so on. And bad things could happen to me riding on that very human-driven ride as well, which will not happen to me at Waymo. That thing doesn't get tired, doesn't, et cetera, et cetera. So with security operations, we are in a very similar situation. Today, the overload is such that many organizations, and that's a survey data, Sense, and additional independent bodies, not ours, that anywhere around 30% of all security alerts are not even being investigated, not enough people to look at them. So, okay, in comparison to that, having something look into them and so on, already a thing. Point number two, time it takes. Sure, let's say you have humans. It takes them a couple of hours to investigate a significant security event. Do you know what a skilled attacker will do with your organization in these couple of hours? Come on. So you're not replacing the perfect reality with something you don't trust. You're replacing one set of risk factors with a different set of risk factors that you need to understand and control.
Right. Well, and so I will say I've also gone out of my way to use Waymo, and actually we actually, when I'm in San Francisco, I actually prefer it.
Absolutely.
I will say, for those who haven't tried it, when you first look at it, you might go, oh, well, this costs more than Uber, but remember to factor in the tip. So like if you're not a tipper, then if you're an asshole, then it's Uber's cheaper. But if you're tipping, it kind of becomes a one-to-one cost analysis. But I never felt unsafe in a Waymo. And frankly, like when we do rent a car and drive ourselves around San Francisco, my wife actually feels more comfortable being on the road next to Waymo or behind Waymo, in front of Waymo, because you expect it to do what it's supposed to do, whereas humans are unpredictable. And which I remember back in like 2018, 2019, somewhere in there, a an EVCO who I don't want to name because he's an asshole and I don't want to give him any more media attention, said something along the lines of, the problem with self-driving vehicles on the road isn't the self-driving vehicles, it's all the other humans. If you could take all the humans off the road and just have self-driving cars, it would be amazing. All the cars would know exactly like when the light's going to change, and they'd know what the other cars around them are going to do, and everything would just flow smoothly. It would solve all the traffic problems. But because you've got humans, everything is unpredictable, and it makes it sometimes it makes it look like the self-driving car is the one messing up, when it's actually the human drivers that screwed up the gummed up the works.
Wait, and there is another perspective. I was having this very discussion at RSA with one of our advisors, a chief information security officer of one of the world's largest financial institutions, and he actually put it in a very different perspective. He said, look, Leonid, I know that you have a daughter who's close to a college age. I also have a daughter at a college age. Let's say they go out with their friends, have a good time, and as a 18, 19-year-old teenager should be, and they're coming back home at, I don't know, midnight. Who would you rather have them drive? A Waymo car or an unknown Uber driver?
So my daughter is in San Francisco. And
here you go.
And she takes Uber and Lyft and stuff, but we've had that conversation where it's like, all right, well, honestly, like, just take the Waymo. Then we don't have to worry about the driver at all. And honestly, the only time I've ever had, well, maybe not the only time, but the scariest time I ever had using a ride service was just a taxi that I took from Houston Airport to home, where the guy, I don't know how many hours he had been driving, but he was literally falling asleep. Like, I was like busy on my phone. I'm like looking down, and all of a sudden I realized, I'm like, why are we going like 40 on the highway? You know, and it's like, I don't know, and then he almost like ran us off the road a couple times. Like, yeah, like that was the scariest ride I've ever had. But like I said, you know, it does take a little leap of faith the first time you get in a Waymo, where you're like, all right, is this going to actually get me from point A to point B safely? But once you do it, you're like, oh, that was really smooth. That was I've got nothing to fear here.
Think about self-checkout registers in major supermarkets. Sure, I believe some people are uncomfortable and would probably prefer going to a human cashier, but the reality is these things are faster. They don't make mistakes, right? Whatever you scan, whatever you don't, you don't. If they are smart and you just have your sort of like cart with the products pass and they identify it, again, they are very accurate, nothing more, nothing less. Save a lot of time. It's all a matter of perception, not more than that. It's truly more efficient, like seriously.
I was going to say, like, we're going way off from, you know, we're not in Marvel versus DC territory, but I was going to say, like, my main objection to self-checkout, and I mean, I use it more now, but my main objection has always been, okay, I get it. You're trying to streamline things, and you know, but you know, the store then is like hiring fewer cashiers. Like, you go in and there's like all these lanes, and they're not manned. They're all closed. And I'm like, okay, so then shouldn't I get a cost savings? You know, like you're basically asking me to work for you at that point, and that's my objection. It's like, and you know, I've had a similar objection to. You know, like I don't hold anything against you know, someone trying to make as much money as they can, but like if one guy is driving for Uber in a car that gets 10 miles per gallon, and then another guy is driving a Tesla or whatever, I'm like, well, shouldn't my cost savings, like I should get some benefit from this because you're saving a lot of money.
Now, if we map this concern. Like we always tell organizations that by adopting modern autonomous SOC, by adopting AI, it's not like, okay, tomorrow all my humans can go take a run at the store, get fired. No. The problem is that all of the security organizations we are dealing with, they are in such a huge deficit of talent, deficit of attention, and so on. Unlike maybe some of these examples, In here, actually, the saved manpower, saved man attention goes to going and improving the security posture of an organization, goes to lowering the risk, etc. So this equation of what's in it for me if I use more advanced, more efficient technology, if everything is great and efficient the way it used to be, sure, you lower the cost. But if everything is not great, you can actually go ahead and improve. You can actually serve your growing organization without finding additional talent, which you would anyway not be able to do on the current market. What would you have to do about that? Oh, you lower the security posture because less people are dealing with more problems. So that's why I think applying it in particular to cybersecurity has this blessing. The fact that it's an industry in such a deficit that I think we have many years of providing efficiency, improvement solutions.
So I've had many conversations along those lines. I mean, I think every cybersecurity vendor I've talked to that has introduced some sort of generative or agentic AI has said, "Hey, we're not here to replace the humans. Like it's about augmenting the humans and streamlining." And I think there is general consensus of, well, we are trying to replace level 1 of a SOC. We're trying to replace tier 1, but it's not because we want to get rid of people. It's because we want the people to focus on more important things, not do the grunt work.
Any tier 1 analyst, what their dream is, they're saying, hey, I'm not staying at this job forever. I want to move ahead. I want to be promoted to tier 2, tier 3, become forensic analyst, become architect, etc. This thing accelerates this transition. I've never met tier 1.
Sorry, Leo, if they stay in those roles too long, they burn out anyway. Like that's driving the burnout and the talent shortage.
My concern, and I think I have an article that I'm going to publish possibly later today where I mentioned this concern. My concern is there are things you can do right now because people have that knowledge. They're in tier 1, and you can say, hey, listen, we're going to replace this stuff, and we're going to now you can focus on the tier 2 stuff. There are things you can do now as a function of like where we're at in the world that 5 years from now I'm concerned, well, will you still be able to do that? Because in order to get to tier 2, you do tier 1 so you can work your way to tier 2, and now you have that wealth of experience to pull from. And and same thing with like coding or whatever. It's like, well, you get to be an experienced seasoned coder by doing the entry level coding. And if we start offloading everything to AI, it's like, okay, well, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, will we still have the knowledge base? Will we still have people who understand enough to know, okay, is this right? Is this wrong? What am I supposed to do with this?
We will acquire it differently. It's the same as when we were all learning to drive. Probably we used to have manual transmission cars. Today's youth, say your daughter, I don't think, depending on her driving license, that she can even drive a car with manual transmission. She drives only automatic or continuous. Here you go. You're stuck between generations. That's the thing here. You're not.
I do remember though being 15 and saying, I'm not going to learn this. This won't be around.
My stepmother made me, even though it wasn't really going to be around, and I was like, yeah, I don't want a manual transmission. Why would I do that? I can just hit the gas and the car goes. And she was like, yes, but it's a thing you should know how to do, because let's say you're at an event, someone gets hurt, you need to take them to the hospital. The only car there is a manual transmission. You should know how to drive the manual transmission.
I wish I knew how to drive.
That's very situation.
I wish I knew.
And at the event, we had to take someone home, not because they were hurt, but because unfortunately they had too much fun. And I was the only guy out of 15 people group who knew how to use manual transmission. A, felt very proud. B, felt very old, but that's my thing. That's not anybody else's problem. But seriously, I think that knowledge in a modern world can be acquired in a different way. Back in the days, first programmers had to do assembly language and understand how registers work and so on. Today, most of a good application development is being done by people who are not necessarily even aware of that part and exactly how it works. So the profession changes, yes, but people will still be acquiring the basic, understanding of networking, understanding of how operating systems function in order to identify and analyze attacks, etc. They'll just acquire it differently, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. Well, and people who follow this podcast are going to get tired of me using the same analogy. But one of the things that there was a study I saw a few months back that has stuck to me, and I keep having the conversation on the podcast about like the human mind and human memory, and like when I was learning to drive, like I was delivering pizza. I had the entire map of Southfield, Michigan memorized. You could give me a street and I knew where to go off the top of my head.
There you go.
I had 50 phone numbers memorized. I knew my phone number. I knew my work phone number. I knew my mom's phone number. I knew all the phone numbers in my head. If you ask me today, I'm like, I know some of the streets around my area, but like, well, I don't need to know everything because my phone knows it. I barely remember my own phone number because my phone knows it. And so that was kind of what initially started this line of thinking for me was, okay, yeah, the more we start to rely on AI to do these things, where are we going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Will we still have these cognitive skills?
It's a good question.
It's a good question. We will definitely be like the generation of workers at that time period will be different in their skill set from the generation of workers today. But then again, I do not think it's an inevitable part of progress. Sure, skills like, does the fact that today we do not need to remember phone numbers, we are way less aware of how maps look because we have technology solving this issue for us, etc. Does it make us fundamentally less efficient? Or the other way around, does it allow us to open up ourselves to things that we would have never reached because we'd be carrying out of the lower level details and get busy with those, right?
Well, it would be great to be able to say, well, I don't know how to read a map and I don't remember all the phone numbers, but that's because I've shifted my brain and now I have this other knowledge. I don't know that we're really there because I feel like everyone just shifted to TikTok. And so I think it's more of a dumbing down and not an improvement at this point.
Oh, we're definitely dumbing down, Tony. No doubt. Look at us.
we are not necessarily a typical TikTok user, but yeah.
All right. Well,
but like the three of us. But yeah.
I want to thank you guys for taking the time. I want to give either of you the floor, both of you the floor to issue some party thoughts. But I do want to mention one other thing in terms of unique branding, and that is one of the things that has stood out to me the entire time we've been speaking, and I'm not sure if anyone else will have noticed, is that Don has trademarked the name Don.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
Bold move. Like
I'm about, just attention. Any little hack I can do to get attention on any, that's just an approach.
Nothing
any closing thoughts on the conversation? Anything you want to let the audience know before we sign off?
From me, just one simple thing. What our brand reflects, and what our brand hopefully will continue reflecting, is the fact that we are very serious people who take our products, our customers, and their needs very seriously. But we don't make a sin of taking ourselves overly serious. We remember that having fun while working really hard every day is quite important. It's a tough job, and there's nothing bad about doing that. So that's sort of like my connection to our brand identity. Don, what's yours?
I think we're just trying to tell a story in a different way, and I think there's real existential challenges that security teams are facing today that are very, very serious, and we think that automation is the answer. Right? We're here to help security teams automate more faster. And we take that very serious, but we do, to Leonid's point, like to have a good time and entertain and create a connection with our customers. And we've been very fortunate that the market's responded very positively to that, and people talk about it. And to your point, Tony, you go home and say, man, I looked at 400 or 500 different booths. I went to 6 or 7 different happy hours and dinners. But I'm going to remember that monster truck. That's what we're looking to do, right? We're trying to make a lasting impression so that when people think about SOAR or people think about SecOps and automation, they think about Torq, and that's really been working for us. And that only happens with really great people and a really great product behind us. So thank you. Thank you for the time, Tony. This has been great.
No, thank you guys. Yep. I appreciate you investing your time to listen to the podcast. But I also invite you to engage on social media. Please go like our Facebook page and follow @TechSpective on Twitter and Instagram. You can feel free to let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. Let me know if you love it. Let me know if it sucks. And let me know what products you'd like to see reviewed or what questions you'd like to see answered in future posts.